everyone. Welcome to the Women Who Code podcast. I'm Manda Frederick. I'm the Program Communication Manager with Women Who Code. I'm excited to be here today with you with some of our fourth annual cohort of the Women Who Code Leadership Fellowship Program. So these incredible technologists have worked really closely with the Women Who Code community and the Women Who Code global team to move forward our mission. But unfortunately, they'll be ending their fellowship this month. We're really sad to see them go. But before they do, we have a chance to sit down with them and hear some of their thoughts on technology and their tech stacks and the Women Who Code mission. This is actually the second of two conversations that we've had. So we met with 3 of the fellows yesterday, and we're meeting with the others today as they're spread kind of all across the globe. It's a really global, diverse community here. So if you are just tuning in to the second session, I'd recommend that you go and listen to the first because it's also really inspiring. If you did miss the session from before, I want to tell everyone a little bit about the Women Who Code Leadership Fellowship Program in case you're unfamiliar with it. It's an annual program under the leadership of 2 of the Women Who Code Team Teal members. So a big thank you and acknowledgement to Stephanie Rideout, our digital community specialist, and Gracia Castaldi, Director of Community. So every year, this program supports the development of 6 outstanding technologists through hands-on mentorship and training, and we have 3 of them here today. So after a rigorous interview process, 1 fellow is matched to each of the 6 of our Women Who Code technical tracks. So we've got mobile, front end, cloud, data science, Python, blockchain, which after this year will be known as emerging tech. And through these part-time positions, these fellows coordinate events. They direct communications like our social medias, they coordinate events, they direct all sorts of programs, and they help Women Who Code Global with our technical events as well. So we have a chance to learn more about their time as fellows today, as I said, and I'm really excited for you to meet them. So we'll hear from each of the fellows. If you could introduce yourselves and let us know where you're joining from, what you're up to professionally, and which technical track that you led. And we can start with Eliza.
Sounds great. Thank you, Manda. So I'm Eliza Sarobhasa. Pronouns are she and her. I'm Leadership Fellow for Women Who Code Python track. And my background Python was I helped volunteer with another Python group, PyLadies, and also did recent work as project manager for events with the PyCascades conference for the past 3 years. And I'm located in Vancouver, BC on the West Coast. Also, I didn't realize there are 2 Vancouvers, but there are. I'm the one in Canada. Yeah, and I can hand the microphone back to you, Manda.
Great. Bhavya, would you introduce yourself to us?
Hi everyone, I'm Bhavya. I'm tuning in from India and I'm the Leadership Fellow for Blockchain track, now known as the Emerging Tech track. And I'm a Web3 strategist and a product manager. And I really work in the emerging tech space. So joining in the blockchain track was like a great opportunity to talk more about the stack since it's really like an upcoming tech stack and we don't have enough resources in the space. So it was, yes, definitely a very good opportunity that I have had in my career in emerging tech.
Amazing. And finally, we have with us Navati.
Hey, so my name is Navati and my pronouns are she, her. And I'm an iOS developer based in Toronto. And I've been leading the mobile track of Women Who Code. And that's been great because, I get to stay in touch with my own tech stack. And I've also been involved in other tech communities like Women Tech Makers Ambassador Program. Just recently, we had this Swift Toronto conference. So, just love being a part of the community, and Women Who Code was amazing, an amazing way to be a part of that.
Well, I'm really excited to be here to hear all of your thoughts on your time over the last year and also your thoughts on tech and just more about your experience. I guess to kick us off, I would like to just ask you all if you could summarize your experience over the last year as fellows with 1 word. And if you want to explain why you chose that word or what it means to you, we'd love to know. So let's go ahead and we'll start with Navati.
So in 1 word, and that's not easy, so I would go with growth. I feel that I've definitely grown in various ways. I mean, there've been so many different challenges to work on, and something that I would probably not work as much on, like certain skills that I would not work so much on in my day-to-day job. So this has really been an enriching experience, and it's not just for me. I've seen the track grow. I've seen the volunteers also grow in their roles and evolve. So yeah, I think this would be a nice word to use to summarize my experience.
That's incredible. And yes, and you're absolutely right. We saw a lot of growth from all of the tracks and the amount of events, and also the mobile summit was a really big success this year for the Dev Summit. So that's really exciting. And Eliza, what would you say your one word is for the year?
Sure, I guess the word would be fulfilled, I mean fulfillment. Like when I saw like everything that the volunteers, the community members, they wanted to set out to achieve their goals, their projects, and they were able to do it. They were able to hit their marks. They were able to like, get the job they want or like complete the project for school. Like that inner feeling of success that they have, like they do their own achievements. I just kind of shared that feeling with them as they work through it. So I guess that's for me, just like it's like that inner happiness that like they're also succeeding, but in one word it's like I guess fulfillment or fulfilled.
No, I think that's true. I think something cool about the community is you're always seeing the product of our efforts, right? You promote the event and people come, right? You give people coaching on how to get a job, and then we get a message that they got the job, right? Like it's a constant reward system. So I completely agree. And Bhavya, for you.
If I have to explain it like in one word, I would definitely call a movie. So like in a movie, there's so much happening right from start to the ending. There's so many up downs. So much happens. So it's like a long journey, but still very short lived. So I would just definitely encompass it into a movie. We did so much. The track went through so many things. We all as fellows went. There was so much. There was music. There was ups and there was downs. Yet it was all like compiled into like packed into like 1 year, and there's so much happened, so you feel like it has been very long. We have been associated with Women Who Code, yet it always feels that it ended so soon.
Oh, I love that. That's such a great analogy. And I think extending your analogy, what would be your favorite scene from the movie? And this is like a question for all of you. What was your favorite moment of the year? What would you say, Bava? What a scene you would watch again and again? What would it be?
The highlight for me was definitely one week I got super caught up in a lot of personal situations, and I forgot to follow up. And these volunteers, like they were pretty inactive, and we had been having these issues that okay, how do we keep everyone's interest in? And we did constant efforts. We try to understand what they are looking for, how can we help them in their growth, and we had been just doing efforts like hoping it would improve. And then one day when I could not follow up, we just observed that they reached out and they were like, oh, what are we doing now? Is there something that we can do? Is it something happening? What can we do? Should we do this? They came up with a lot of ideas. So it was then that we realized, okay, past 3 months, what we have been doing, it is actually showing up, and people are actually now invested in their own growth. So that was like a major turning point and a very kind of achievement moment for me. Like I felt accomplished that, okay, I could understand those people finally. So I think that was like one scene I would rewatch again and again.
Yeah, because a big part of your function, all of your function is community management, right? So you've got this community and your job is to help give them all the tools and knowledge and whatever they need to activate. But you can't make them activate. You just have to hope that you've done the work, and to see that happen, to see them activate, that's incredible. Congratulations. And Navati, what would be your favorite moment from the year?
I think I would go with favorite moments because every time I would meet the volunteers for planning maybe a new series, or having some of those volunteer check-in meetings, or even one-to-ones, I have always felt energized after hosting those meetings, like brainstorming ideas together, and feeling creative, and realizing that we have this shared passion for our work with Women Who Code and tech, even when it was a really tiring day or a very intense phase. Somehow I would just manage to host some of these meetings, and I was like, how will I get through it? But when I would, I would just have so much more energy. I would feel recharged, and like their passion was just contagious. I would feel so excited. Like I think that was really it just really motivated me to keep going, and knowing that this work is definitely impactful.
I think that's one of the first things you notice, like if you attend like a Connect or a Dev Summit, is the chat right when we log in during the keynote is electric. Just the way everyone's feeding off each other and all of the energy, and it's just one of those really like beautiful spaces that just keeps making its own energy, as we feed and give to each other. And Eliza, for you.
Sure, I guess I have 2 points. The first one was the Block Data Pi conference. I wonder if we'll rename it next year. But it was just a lot of fun seeing everyone come together. It's like pitching ideas because we have the Women Who Code Connect conference every year, and I help some of the volunteers submitting their own CFPs, and seeing those that were like maybe more like Python specific applied for the Block Data Pi conference. Then on the day of the conference, even though it's not in person, everyone's like very energetic, very active. The speakers are very enthusiastic about what they're speaking on. And just also to tag on along to what Navati mentioned earlier. I think like a lot of the meetings, like I'm in West Coast time zone, so I was a bit sleepy during the calls. I hope it doesn't show up in the video recordings. But yeah, just the first session with like the volunteers and the last session, the meetings with them, and just like starting and wrapping up this series, just like keep up the energy momentum with them. Like it's very, like it's same word, like it's very fulfilling.
And Eliza, I'll stay with you. So you've talked about fulfillment, you've talked about sort of the energy that you get and the reward of seeing the people you help, right, accomplish. Is there some other point in your year? What's your most proud accomplishment from the year as your time as a fellow? What makes you feel the most accomplished, or something that you're very proud of?
I think like this past year, we've seen like the tech landscape. A lot of people had layoffs, people got sick, family issues, like a lot of things are happened. And I guess I'm proud of like the volunteers felt it was like a safe, because the community that if something was going on, like they would come up to me like right away and say, oh, I can't do this, or just like I need like more time to work on this, like instead of, because it's online, right? Like there's always an option like for ghosting, because it's just nature thing, but they felt like comfortable and supportive environment in like the Python Slack community, that if something happens, they can speak up, or they can like delegate the work. Like they felt more ownership of like what they're working on, and like trying to continue that like vibe and culture in the track. Proud of. I know it's like I'm just continuing on like the work of all the previous fellows on me, but I hope like I can continue to do so. Does that kind of like answer your question, Manda?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you should absolutely feel proud of creating a safe space where people want to support a mission of empowering women in tech. That's the dream, right? That's what we're all here to do. So I think that you absolutely answered my question. And for you, Navati, what's something that you feel proud of from the last year?
Well, I really like that we were able to successfully have launch some interactive sessions and series that brought the community together, the volunteers together. So we had the iOS study circle, for instance, and we just concluded that about a week or 2 weeks ago. It spanned over like 5 months, and it was thanks to a very determined member who volunteered, Monica, and she thanks to her and the participants, we got through an entire book, which I don't think I could do on my own. And also similarly, we had the Android study group, and we concluded one series about maybe 2 months ago, and they are back again with their second series now. So that's been great. We've also had the book club folks who've been hosting some technical discussions that are really, really interesting, and getting feedback from the attendees that they've learned something and they've benefited from this series is definitely wonderful. And we've also launched another series called Let's Talk, where we talk about different mental health topics, and we also have plans to talk about some personal and professional growth topics. So to get feedback from the participants here as well, that they felt validated and they appreciate the safe space that they could have and talk about these vulnerable topics. Again, it confirms that this is impactful work. And of course, all these successes are thanks to the volunteers, and they've been working hard, they've been planning and collaborating across different time zones, of course. So I really appreciate that, and I'm really proud of them for making all of these series successful.
Congratulations. And yeah, I think that creating spaces where people can learn, they can share, they can be seen, they can discuss topics that matter to them, I think is really one of the highlights of what we offer as a community, because you may not always get that. I think maybe at your workplace, or if your friends aren't technologists, maybe they don't quite understand what you're going through. So I think it's really important. And for you, Bhavya?
So for me, it was majorly organizing the Solidity Bootcamp. So one thing I observed entering into the track was that we were still following the format that we were doing webinars. And once we interacted with people in meet and greet, we observed that this is a new tech. And a webinar might not be the best way for beginners to get into the space, because they're still clueless before and after it. They might get a generic overview, but they still don't have enough actionables. So we had been wanting to organize something that is a hands-on session that can get them onboarded onto the space and like get building actually. But again, because given the resource pool, the talent in the space, it was hard to find someone who could actually conduct an entire thing. Thankfully, we could do it last month and it went pretty well. We actually got a few people who coded their own day apps and started coding their own smart contracts as well. So I think that was a changing thing, that was a turning point for all of us, because we understood that this is something that we can implement in future as well. We were very skeptical about it. And yes, seeing that response from the community, getting people usually don't prefer turning on their videos. But the fact that they stayed on a session that was scheduled for 1 hour, went on for 3 hours, they all stayed till the very end. We didn't see dropouts. People were actually coding with the speaker. So that was definitely, that felt like very like I've accomplished something.
Yeah, that's incredible. Sometimes you just need to get started, right? It's hard to start the book, right, Navati? It's hard to start, Bhavya, the coding session. It's hard to start the conversations that are vulnerable. But I think something that was really great about the work that you did was you created lots of opportunities for people just to get started, so that they could pursue their learning path. So a big part of what you were doing was coordinating things, obviously, for your technical track. So I'd be curious to know your perspective about your tech track or your technical stack, and remind the listeners what tech track that you were leading this year. But what excites you about that technology or that tech stack? What are you looking forward to? What would you like people to know? And we'll start with Navati.
So what I like about mobile is that you get to create apps that you can that can be run on these handheld devices that we all already use, and there's so much scope to this and there's so much to learn. You can create apps that can help you with your productivity or even habit building and mental health too, right? Or you can just make a fun app, right? There's so many different problems that you can solve, and there's also so much to learn. There are so many different SDKs out there. I keep learning about new ones. I feel like, of course, there's augmented reality, there's MLKit, there's HealthKit, there's so many more that I cannot even think of right now. But so you can keep learning. There's you can never really claim to know it all, and I think that's great because you can there's always something to experiment with. There's always something to try, and moreover, you're not just restricted to like mobile devices. Like the phone devices, but you could also use very similar skills for building an app for tvOS, watchOS, and now maybe even visionOS, right? And the other thing is, and I was talking about iOS this whole time, but Android and iOS are getting more and more similar. So I think that's great because we have some similar frameworks that are coming up, like declarative UI. We have Swift UI on the iOS side, and they have Jetpack Compose, right? Our languages also are pretty similar, and the adopted design patterns that we have are also quite similar. So I think that's great because you can even relatively, it's not that hard to move into the other tech stack. So I think there's just so much to learn and so much to play around with that, hopefully one isn't bored. You can keep trying different things. And I love that about this field.
Yeah, it is a really diverse field, and it's interesting. I like that all of the kinds of mobile developers are all in the same hub under the Women Who Code community. I think out in the wild, the kind of like Kotlin versus Swift, like there can be a little competitiveness in the Android Google ecosystem, that kind of thing. But here at Women Who Code, we're all devs, right? We're all diverse technologists working towards something, and I think that's really special. And for you, Bhavya, what would you like to say about your tech stack?
So I essentially picked up emerging tech as a stack while I picked up my job as well, was because when you're working with emerging technologies, there's so much uncertainty around it. There's so much space for innovation because there's nothing set in space. Like today, if you're going around and learning something like Java, it has been well explored, and there's a certain way that it's an object-oriented programming language, and that's how you would learn it. But with the emerging tech stack like Web3 and blockchain specifically, there's so much that can be done. It just states that we want to build something that increases transparency and security and decentralized. But this still so much. You can make your own language, you can make your own blockchain, for instance, you can make your own L1 solution. So there's just so much room for exploring things, and it is chaos, right? And it has a lot of uncertainty. You don't know, there will be a bull run, there will be a bear run, and people will say, okay, this tech stack won't last beyond 6 months. So that is something that I definitely enjoy in the tech stack, that okay, 6 months later I might need to just start again and learn everything from the scratch. So that has been a pretty exciting space, and being in a community specifically with a track like this kind of increases your network to people who are actually naturally risk takers, right? These are the people who are exploring every day. They're trying to build on something we're not even sure if it works, right? So you have so many opinions coming in. Everyone will have a different perspective to how it works, because no one has set boundaries about it. No one has told them that this is how it works. So that I think is pretty exciting, especially with now the emerging tech stacks that are coming up. Something like genomics, like some 5 years earlier, we might not even have thought of it. So definitely, I enjoy this field because of the uncertainty it brings. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's such like an open field, right? I like that both of you were saying this, but here I think it's really important to find your tribe of people who get you, right? The kind of people who like to work the way you work can be really helpful. Of course, we want to have diverse perspectives, but also having your tribe of people who like are your kind of people can really be helpful working on projects and things. And the kind of person who would be interested in kind of an unstable technology that's like reinventing itself every 6 months, it's cool to be able to find other people who are interested in that and to be able to get help from them as well. And for you, Eliza.
So yeah, I agree. Like finding that similar people, your tribe, the same vibe, the same rapport. It's like it's hard to find that outside of college, right? So I'm really glad like these community groups like exist. Yeah, so I can add. So for Python, it's convenient. Ever like my background's like project management, data analytics. I remember coding in Java, in C, in SQL. I remember when we had to do like update Excel files and share them instead of putting them in the database. And with Python, I was just like, oh, this makes it easy and like convenient to automate like certain tasks like I would do by hand. Just like pulling information from the files, creating documents, automating workflows, creating the dashboards. And it's like, it's not only right, like analytics, like use Python, right? Use it for gaming. You can use it, to call it Internet of Things, 3D printing. It's like there's a lot of different things you can do, like the language. Just like seeing that like among the communities, like, oh, I've like this random interest, I want to try to learn it. And it's it's like it's project management. So project management, like you want to make everything more efficient and easier, so you can also focus like on the hard tasks instead of staying too much in like I guess the daily grunt work if not necessary. So yeah, and just it's always great that like I think the creators, he said for the Python language, like it's always backwards compatible. So some people say like, yeah, at work we're still using like version like 2, but now there's like version 2.3 and we just updated. It's like, oh my gosh, it's so exciting. But that's what I've heard from several of the volunteers and community members. So yeah.
So in each of your responses, and Eliza, I'll start with you for this question.
Okay.
Each of your responses, you talked a little bit about your career, your tech stack, and so I'm curious, how was your time as a Women Who Code fellow over the last year? How do you think it will empower, or has it already empowered your career? Or how do you think it's going to help you thrive in your tech journey? And Eliza, I'll start with you.
Okay, I think for me, it's helped me look at like both sides of like the interviewing table. Like, if you're hiring someone for your team who's like fresh out of school or did like, a lateral career move, like what's going on their head, why they chose the projects they did like to bring to the like their resume and interview, and like how you can identify like, team vibe, culture fit, and how you can help support them and grow in their career, right? Because obviously those people, like it's great that some companies they get the resources and like learning development to help grow, but like large community members, like they come to us, right? Because they're looking to fill that need to be able to have that, like I've said, that growth and like projects in their career, and also keeping like my resume toolkit sharp. So it's always interesting to hear.
Yeah, I think the actual like mechanics of career is something we have the career navigation track, and that's something we talk about a lot here. We are obviously upskilling as technologists also, but the mechanics of how to hire thoughtfully, how to interview on both sides, I think is really valuable. I would agree. And for you, Navati, how would you say that your time as a fellow has or will empower your career?
Yeah, like Eliza said, that being on the other side of those interviews is, like the insights that you get from running a community like this, it really helps with being on the other side. So this is something I'd like to do more of, and I have expressed interest at work that, let's talk more about how we can make our interviews inclusive, right? So that's something I'd like to do in the future. But besides that, what I've seen and how I've seen it, help me at work is, I believe it's taught me to speak up more, take on more risks, and also, bring up advocacy topics at work. So around the time I became a fellow, at my company, I joined this ERG, this employee resource group. They have an allyship pillar, and I started to, talk about things like neurodiversity, and they really liked it. And we had a company-wide event called the Day of Inclusion. So they were like, "Can you host a panel and interview some of our colleagues here?" And that felt scary because I hadn't really hosted a panel until like then. And I remember reaching out to Gracie and Stephanie for some tips as well. But it was nice to also bring some similar impact at work. And my company seemed to appreciate my involvement with Women Who Code. They invited me for another session to talk about what I do here at Women Who Code. And I was also grateful because I got some other opportunities, like I got featured on their social media, and they also recommended me to attend a local professional women conference that they were sponsoring. So like that was really nice to get that recognition at work. And also with public speaking, for that matter, like before I joined as a fellow, I would do a little bit of volunteering speaking for some events and like moderating those events. But as a fellow, you do it so often. Like I think it's just helped me get more comfortable with it. And just like recently I was at this conference, SwiftU, that I was volunteering for, and I was, very bravely, I was like, yeah, I'll help MC this event. And it was scary because it was an in-person one, and I haven't done something in person for a long time. I probably just did like one speaking event last year. Besides that, everything's been virtual. But I was, like, I'm happy with the way it went because I had to kind of improvise there. I came up with some puns, but I felt like I could get through this because of all the experience and the, training that I've had with Women Who Code. So I could really see that, it's really helping me already. Yeah.
Congratulations and good job being brave. I think that it's, we don't always know what we can do until we try. And I think that you're right. This is a good ecosystem to try, right? People can become a first-time speaker, submit a blog, answer a question on Slack. Like you can start here, and it's a really safe space to do that. And I'm really happy for you that you had that experience. And it's important. It's important to hear from diverse technologists. The work we're doing is important. So congratulations on taking the mission back to your team. And Bhavya, for you.
So for me, it was like a little different. Like I had always been interested in business side of things, but given my background, I was always working as a technologist. I was studying coding, and it was really a very big gap that I felt. And the point is, I wanted to go on to more managerial roles where I work as a strategist, as a partnerships manager. But I had always felt that block in communicating tech to non-tech people. That was a specific one for me. But when I came in here, I had an opportunity to network with so many people, and specifically to be in a community like this that motivates you constantly. Even the volunteers, the members we have, the moment you put in something like, okay, this is something I'm interested in, you'll get so many tips, you'll get so many people talking about it. Okay, this is what I went through. So to just have someone who can relate to you and explain things so much easier, that support in itself like motivates you a lot. So that actually became like a transitioning point for me where I could understand people better. I became a better communicator. I understood because most of my industry is remote. And while working in a remote workforce, it's essential that you communicate with your team, you communicate your needs better. And when you are at a managerial position, you need to understand the needs of your team. So that alignment automatically became a lot better for me. I became comfortable in front of camera. I became comfortable doing podcasts specifically, and the Women Who Code made me start streaming as well. So I have now gotten too comfortable with the camera. And that's when I actually decided that, okay, it's time I pivot and I go to more of strategies kind of role. So now I'm the chief of strategy for the Phoenix Guild. It's a community again focusing on women developers. So now I rarely do tech there. Like I'm still associated with coding and everything, but the major part includes doing partnerships, talking to people, managing the resources, managing the team, and implementing all of that. So I think that confidence, that boost, something that I definitely needed at the moment, and I think Women Who Code has completely changed the game for me.
Oh, that's incredible. And the confidence that you get again, just to build these skills over time, because it does take time. Did anyone want to share any additional thoughts about how it could empower your career before we move on?
Sure. So I want to add also, I believe Navati and Bhavya can second this, like, it's a lot of wrangling for different time zones with the volunteers, right? We're all like located internationally and just like making sure everyone's like supported and like do coordinating, a bigger appreciation for people who juggle all the different continents for time zone, and also recognizing like a lot of our community. I know Python we usually have a lot of like beginner students, but some people are intermediate, some people are like senior. They've been in Python since the beginning, and just like recognizing how to help like support those like community members like in their career or their skill sets to help grow and like watch them also give back to the community. I think helped me become like a better like people leader. So.
I love what you're saying, because I think there's been a resistance sometimes from companies about hiring across time zones or hiring diversely or hiring different levels. And is it more work? Obviously, it's more work to have a lot of different perspectives in one space, to hire, people at different skill levels and things. But is it worth it? Obviously, right? It's worth it to do that work because every community is made better with the more diversity that's present there. I would agree. So speaking of our community, let's say I'm a seasoned technologist, or maybe I'm a new technologist, and I'm interested in Women Who Code, but I'm not a member yet. What would you say to me why I should join Women Who Code, or just any thoughts on that? And let's start with Navati.
Well, like you said, Manda, that you may not have a friend in the tech field already, someone who you can share these things with. So I think Women Who Code is a great way to find folks that you can, talk about all these tech topics, as well as what it's like to work in tech, the challenges that, many of us face and have in common, right? And you can find that support. And what's special about Women Who Code communities is that they really take the code of conduct very seriously, right? Like, the communities are very inclusive, and they foster the safe space for you to, have these discussions. And yeah, and also the other benefits besides that is, you get to learn from different perspectives. Like, we are so global, you have folks from different parts of the world and, in different tech stacks, and you can learn from them. Like, something I forgot to mention when I was talking about how much I like mobile, and I was talking about Android and iOS. But besides that, there's also cross-platform, right? Like, there is also cross-platform technologies in mobile. So, you could get exposure in that, for instance, right? Like, I can learn about what's happening in Kotlin multi-platform mobile, or, Ionic or React Native or Flutter, things like that. It's a great way to get exposure, because tech is an evolving field. There's so much, it's really hard to keep up. I'm sure all of us can agree on that, right? So I find that with these communities, Women Who Code, you can, figure it out together, right? You can learn some of these things and get exposure and get an idea what's going on. And like we did with the iOS study circle, right? Like, we learned some new iOS topics together. And besides that, it's a great way to help with if you want to help with the issues that we have with diversity or representation in tech, right? You can really help be an ally, and you can advocate for this. So yeah, it's a great way to find, mentors, peer mentors, or just mentor folks. It's a really wholesome experience, basically.
Yeah, there's your answer is there's something for everyone. So just go ahead and sign up, right? Bhavya, does any of that resonate with you?
Yeah, I think I totally agree with what Navati said here. And it's definitely a place, so especially for technologists, it's very hard to keep up with what's happening globally. And now with remote workforces coming in, it's very important to stay updated with the trends and the market, how it's changing. So one thing that Women Who Code does is you enter as a newbie or a senior seasoned technologist. You'll always have people to help you around, to navigate around. You keep updated with the trends, you keep updated with what's happening in the industry, and you can anytime start a discussion. It creates a safe space for you to try out new things. So if you're a technologist, maybe it's from Python, but now you want to transition into something else, So you have everything happening within one community, and you have such a supportive environment, and there will be always people who can recommend things to you. There is someone or the other who has had a similar experience. And the best part about it is that you grow here, you learn here, you experiment here, and then you also have access to so many jobs as well. So it's really like a one spot space for everyone to be in. You find a friend here, you find your recruiter here, you find your co-founders here. So it's really amazing. Like two of the volunteers of Blockchain Track actually met through Women Who Code, and they started their own startup. So actually, they found the co-founder, and it has been only like it has been onwards from there. So it's really like a great place to be.
The networking, the support, the access to resources. Eliza, is there any other reason that you would give someone just like, hey, you've got to check out this community?
Obviously the title, there's more women here in the group. I know it's some community study groups I've joined, it's the men, they outnumbered us. But in this group community, it's like I didn't feel so nervous, asking dumb questions, like saying like I want to learn more about this, like we're working coding project skills. It's also a sense of like the warm like community, the camaraderie, the coziness. You're like you walk in like you're welcome, like, and you're also supported when you want to learn something new. And it doesn't have to be like career related, right? So I was saying before, like you can learn a project for fun. I think I was also looking about using Python to like create your own, it's called the photo booth, but like in the browser. So you wouldn't have to like rely on like, the outside software. And it's like fun and easy, like for a short one-time thing. And the last thing I wanted to add, like, and when it was back in person, because I was also a director with the Women Who Code chapter, at a lot of these events, I would meet a lot of like diverse people from like, do you say the wrong word, like for people like in my own city that I've never heard of, or like companies. And it's like interesting as a student, and it's like in your career, like you're seeing all these like different new things to learn about. And back when it was like in person, which I know we're kind of shifting towards too again. I see these people like only at these events, right? I won't see them at work or the grocery store or like walking the neighborhood. So it's like also that like sense of like community you have like in person and offline.
Yeah, exactly. And Eliza, I'll stay with you. So, okay, so everyone, you've convinced them. They're on the Women Who Code website. They sign up. They're members. What resource do you direct them to first? Which resource from Women Who Code do you find this is one of the most valuable ones? You should definitely check it out.
Okay, usually personally I ask like, what do they want to learn or focus on or grow, right? Then I can help like narrow it down. If it's like a student, they're looking for more projects to work on, maybe the scholarships, opportunities, upskill themselves. If it's someone like career related, listen to the podcast, watch the events online, like, and like connect with people who are maybe on like LinkedIn, like people who spoke at the conferences or on the podcast, like learn more, like because a lot of the community, like you can get technical mentorship, right? Not just only like career. Obviously, like in the workplace, if I ask someone like who's in an executive position, ask them like how they've grown their career and like it's just stuff to achieve. But like someone maybe technical mentorship, say like keep running to this in the code and like how do I not bang my head against the computer every night to make sure it's running? But solutions can I try to find like for myself, because like obviously you can go to Stack Overflow, but I can't do that all the time. Just like recognizing that like to grow also like in your technical skills and like your career. That kind of answer your question?
Yeah, it's perfect. In Navati, does that are those the same resources you would direct people to right away, or do you have an alternate idea?
Yeah, I mean, definitely, we, like Eliza said, we have all these resources and recordings on our YouTube. And I love that we have different formats, right? Like we have the podcast as well, if you want to consume it as an audio thing, and we also have blogs, right? And so yeah, definitely, you could find something like that. You could find a lot of career topics being covered as well, even if you are considering being a speaker for the first time, there's a lot of content that we've produced there. So yeah, I would definitely point folks to that because yeah, I think we've done a great job as Women Who Code. Like it's amazing the amount of content that we've produced. Yeah.
Oh, and the GitHub
and
repo
the
has a lot of
GitHub,
hard
yes. That too. Yeah, I've really encouraged the volunteers to when they were wrapping up on these study circles and study groups to make sure to also publish their resources on GitHub. So yeah, that's another great place to catch up with things. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's cool because it's for diverse technologists made by diverse technologists, right? And yeah, I think we were talking about this in the previous session with the fellows too, about just like the breadth of human knowledge that's represented in our on-demand library and the GitHub and all of these spaces. It's really quite something. And for you, Bhavya, where would you direct people, a new member, what benefit do you think that they could get a lot out of?
So for someone who does not have like a fair idea about what they want to do around in the community, I would say podcast is a good place to start because it gives you varying perspectives from senior leaders, from fellows, from volunteers, from everyone basically. And you get a perspective on technical concepts, you get career navigation advices, you get to know more about the local networks and the tracks as well. So it's like a good introductory format into the community. And when you are actually listening to the Women Who Code podcast, you get an instant amp up in your confidence and the vibe because you really feel that community belongingness through everyone who's talking on the podcast as well. So there's a very strong Women Who Code essence going on in these communications, right? So once you get into that, right, you understand what this place is about and what it means and how it can help you. So that would clearly help you navigate if a network would be more helpful for you or you want to associate yourself with a digital track, for instance. So that really helps you get started in the place, I feel.
Yeah, I love that. I think the podcast we're on one now, so I'm a little biased, but it's just like such a cool resource. And it's just nice to put on, when you're walking your dog or doing your dishes or whatever, just to get some cool information, like you said, from thought leaders in the industry. So I want to like pivot a little bit to your role specifically as fellows. I'd be curious to know, same thing, you're trying to activate someone to maybe apply to be a fellow. Maybe they're on the fence, they're not quite sure. What would you tell them? Why should someone apply to be a Women Who Code Leadership Fellow? And let's start with Navati.
Yeah, I was also pretty confused before I applied for the fellowship. So I know what it's like to be on the fence and, contemplate this. But what I would tell someone who's thinking about it is, it's a leadership fellowship. So you definitely get to practice your leadership skills and you get to learn more about yourself as a leader because, there are, of course, different styles to leadership, right? It's a great way to, build some skills that complement your technical ones, right? And also a great way to create an impact on the community. You get to empower volunteers to, work on events and tasks that interest them. You help them grow and, that is, like Eliza said, is very fulfilling and, you're going to definitely love that feeling. Also celebrating the efforts of volunteers and members and just like the culture at Women Who Code to, applaud one another. And, I think this is a great leadership skill as well to, increase the visibility of the other folks in the community, because I think that's a great way to also help with the diversity representation in tech, right? So yeah, again, like it really is a great way to, like I said, bring impact. And yeah, I guess like these are the reasons that I can think of for why you should apply.
Great reasons. It's a really nice list of reasons I think why people should consider applying. And for you, Eliza, do you have anything to add to what Navati said?
I guess for me, I had previously been director, so I was familiar with Women Who Code, like community and like running events and also like podcasts and designs. And for me, like I guess one of my main philosophies that I've learned is just like giving back to the community. Like I received so much support and like resources just from being a community member and like participating, attending. And that's why I stepped up from like, from just attending events to being like lead and director, and now just like also stepping up to like giving back more on like, on a global scale versus just like in our Vancouver chapter. And I don't know, it's just like, if I had to like, pitch this, my elevator pitch to someone saying on leadership, I was like, you got to step up, like change, like you can like do change, but like you can do smaller steps or bigger steps, but just like keep growing in your career and like yourself. And like, I think too, like as Navati mentioned, just like you learn more about like your kind of like skill set and like leadership style as like you interact with all like these different volunteers.
Yeah, I think increasing the scope and reach of your impact through this role and setting yourself up to even continue a career of doing that, that's a really good point. And for you, Bhavya, what would you say to someone if they're not sure if they should apply or not?
So I think, like just as Navati said, all of us as well have been on the fence about applying or not. And even when we see applications, we see people apply for it and they just wait on that video submission for the last 2 days because it is a lot. People have a lot of thoughts. Will I be able to manage the time? Is it really worth it? Will I be able to manage such a big community, especially that's global? So I think those are some common questions and natural worries to have. But once you get into the space, once you get started, you realize that you do have to do some kind of late nights, sometimes very early mornings, but eventually that those are the moments you will remember the most. Those are the moments that refresh you from your job, and it actually gives you a space to connect back to people who actually think like you, talk like you, right? So I think that definitely creates an impact on how you become a leader. It affects your leadership style because now you're just not governed by how businesses work in your locality or your geography. You are learning leadership skills from people all over the world. So I think it's a great avenue, especially for someone who's looking to enter into senior leadership roles. It is a great space to experiment and make your mistakes here, because this is one place that will definitely put you out of your comfort zone and ask you to step up again and again. Like, I was camera shy, and only because I had to turn up host events every day is the reason that I love being a speaker now. So I think it definitely helps you explore more about what you can do and what you would like to do as well. So that's definitely a changing opportunity. And yes, you will definitely enjoy it if you apply.
Yeah, I think a common theme in most of the answers today was really about exposure, right? The joining the community will expose you to opportunities, to knowledge, to people that you otherwise wouldn't necessarily have access to, or at least not in one space, in a diverse space, a supportive space. I'm really thankful for the time that you've given us today to share with your thoughts about your experience here as follows. And we're going to collect just final thoughts from everyone. I would be curious if you had anything that you wanted to share about Women Who Code or the future of tech, or your time as a fellow. And also if you want to tell the listeners how they can reach you if you're interested in connecting with our community after. So let's start with Eliza.
Sure. I guess I want to add back one point. As director, like I got to see behind the scenes at Women Who Code, like HQ Global, and like receiving a lot of like support from all of you and like the global team on how Women Who Code runs and like works, and like seeing all the different tracks. So we're really grateful for that. Excite me, future of tech. I know I don't name drop this often, but drones. And there's like they've been making like smaller drones, right? That can track like butterfly migrations, right? Or like when you're taking pictures. Like I do have a photographer background. It's like, oh, taking pictures like volcano erupting and like getting visuals and scenes that it'd be hard to get to if you're a helicopter hiking. I know in Vancouver, BC, when camping's there was a cliff that broke down, so that impacted the salmon run, right? So they had to like figure out how to like airlift the salmon to go to the next spot to complete their migration spawning. Also, there's one I think they're building for the ocean to cut through like the sewage. There's like we're trying to reduce like our garbage intake, right? But it's like it's an ongoing thing. So trying to cut through that so fish and like wildlife do not get like stuck in it, and just like recognizing you can use those drones everyday life. I know another one they're trying to help with deforestation by like planting seeds, bringing water to like the forest fires. I don't know if you've seen the videos of the helicopters like scoop the water, the fish in it, and then just like drop it over the forest fires. But the drones are like able to take like different amounts of water, help with that. So that's interesting. Just using like technology everyday life, but like seeing it like visualized like a robot.
No, I think incredible to see the technology at work in the real world, right? All the work that people are doing, and it's wonderful. And Bhavya, do you have any final thoughts about the community or tech? And do you want to share how people can reach you?
Yeah, I think like community is amazing, and I think everyone should associate themselves to one community. I read something about how people, especially when they enter workforce, they start feeling a lot lonely, because through school, through colleges, we've always had people doing similar things as us, and in our jobs is when we pick our own trajectories. So that's where you really need a community where you can interact and kind of communicate, grow with like-minded individuals. So I think that ways community is very important, and Women Who Code like has created that safe space, that global space where you can come and experiment. So that is great. And about talking about the future of tech, being in the emerging tech, I love the part that while I was growing up, the question around tech was what can we do with tech? And as we grow towards AI and even deep tech now, the question has shifted towards what do we want to do with that? Right, we can make an AI bot or we can make an AI solution, but do we want to do it? So how do we work around humane tech, and how do we limit the resources around tech? How do we use it so that it still aids our purpose is what interests me about the future of tech. So we have changed our perspective around that. So that's pretty amazing. And yes, being in Women Who Code, I started appreciating meeting new people, interacting with new people across the globe, and discussing new ideas. So in case anyone would be interested in connecting back, you can reach me out on LinkedIn or write to me at my email ID, which I'll share. And yes, I am always available for a discussion.
Thank you, Bhavya. And Navati, any final thoughts that you'd like to share about Women Who Code, and also how people can reach you?
Yeah, I loved your answer, Bhavya, and also Eliza, and I'd like to know more about what you do with, I think, Women Who Drone, if I'm correct. Yeah, so I know AI is on everyone's mind, and personally, what I'm most excited is about how it could help me, with as a developer and just, in developer productivity, especially with the IDEs and, just code faster. Besides that, like, I just want to iterate that, being a part of Women Who Code, and it's been great. Obviously, it's been a great way to empower volunteers and members, and I believe that impact propagates. So it's a wonderful way to give back. If there's any way someone can help Women Who Code, either as a volunteer or in any other way to support a great organization, you should definitely do it. It's going to be very impactful, because if you ask yourself, what the ratio of women in your team is like, and generally, when I ask people, I always hear a very dismal figure. Or even if your team is okay, maybe the senior leadership is generally still going to have some underrepresentation, right? And or I hear folks saying that, yeah, we do want to have more women in our team, we just cannot really find them. And I'm like, well, it's because maybe we generally are a lesser, we are still, less in our numbers as a whole. But supporting an organization like Women Who Code is a great way to get more women in the field, right? To, continue being in the field as well. So yeah, like if you can support Women Who Code in any way, I would really, really encourage that. And yeah, I would love to, connect with folks on, I'm still on Twitter or X, and I'm also on Instagram, and my handle is navbarbar. So that's one way, or on LinkedIn as well, with my full name, Navati Jain. And yeah, thank you.
No, thank you for those thoughts. Yeah, change propagates, I think, is a really, really encouraging way to summarize what we've talked about here today. Eliza, I also want to give you a chance to share your socials if you'd like to connect with the community.
Sure. Find me in socials, Eliza or Elizabeth Sarobhasa. My handle is also Gravity Trope on Instagram and Twitter, on social media. I think I'm one of the few people with my last name, so it's not hard to find me. Yeah.
Thank you so much. No, thank you. That's our time today. And just thank you so much from all of us, our bottom of our hearts, the time that you put in to moving forward this mission over the last year. Is just, we can't thank you enough. And it's my understanding that most of you will be continuing to stay involved as a volunteer or legacy leader of some kind. So I'm looking forward to seeing you at upcoming events and other Women Who Code functions. So thank you so much again for your time.
Thank you so much, Manda.
You're welcome. Thank you.